Defense Force. Let's take you live now for the national anthem.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. Brigadier General M.A. Jamangile, the Chaplain General of the South African National Defence Force, is requested to lead us in
Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Today we remember our brave soldiers who entered the deck, stamping the death dance on the deck of the sinking SS Mendi. They believed that what might happen was in the hands of God. They set forth the pathway of bravery unseen before. Even when disaster struck, they had assurance that God was with them. They who knew no graves, but just the sea, soldiers of valor, soldiers of discipline, soldiers of great faith. May we walk in the great footsteps of these great sons of Africa, and that we may know that our God gives peace beyond understanding. In conclusion, God bless you all. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the mass fly past will now commence.
Ladies and gentlemen, the flypasts will
Let
be
me
approaching.
remind you how this day came about. In 2012, President Jacob Zuma, who is the Commander-in-Chief of the South African National Defence Force, proclaimed that the 21st of February each year will be observed and commemorated as Armed Forces Day. Now, the President's here. He will officiate the celebration, and he will take the salute from the South African National Defence Force during the military parade. Now, here we see a flight of helicopters coming through. I recognize one of them. The white one is the Roy Falk. Let me introduce Colonel Lufuno Mafune from the SA Army. He'll talk us through some of the visuals we're watching. Colonel, thank you very much indeed for your time, but indeed a special day. What are we seeing now? This is South Africa's pride flying in the sky.
Thank you very much. What we're looking at now is the rotary wings, the helicopters of the South African Air Force. On top is the Augusta 109, then followed by the Roy Falk attack helicopter. Also present there is the Oryx helicopters, and at the rear you have got your Roy Falk again protecting the rear.
Yeah. And just tell us about that Roy Falk, because it's an impressive machine, isn't it? A fighter, combat plane, a combat helicopter. How effective is it?
It's a very effective machine. The Roy Falk helicopter is actually the combat support helicopter. So the ground forces, when they are doing their battles, they require fire support from the air. So the Roy Falk is utilized to give the fire support from either the direct fire support base to support the ground forces in their battle. It is actually a flying tank, so it fights against the tanks.
The other helicopters we're seeing, can you describe them?
There is a Augusta 109, we utilize it for trooping, as well as the Oryx also utilize it for trooping and cassavac of the troops in the field.
Mm-hmm. Pomp and ceremony definitely on the cards, splendid displays, and I guess all in all a magnificent show has been lined up. Just to give you an indication of what's still to come, we have the flypast at the moment, the marching columns involving the various arms of service, as well as a mechanized column, which is a parade of the military's hard-skinned vehicles. Now, the chief of the SANDF, General Soli Shoke, has authorized the hosting of the Armed Forces Day celebrations, and also remember the centenary commemoration of the sinking of the SS Mendi. The President laid a wreath in honor of the fallen heroes of the 5th Battalion of the South African Native Labour Corps who perished on the morning of Saturday, the 21st of February 1917. Colonel, these planes...
These ones, they are actually your transport aircrafts, trying to display the capabilities.
And in terms of, I understand we have the C-130s, the Hercules, those carry soldiers, isn't it? Those are the big planes. Very impressive indeed.
The C-130 is currently our strategic airlift that we have in the Defence Force. So if we have to deploy soldiers maybe outside of the Republic, then we uplift them with the C-130 to project them to that country. Then also when the soldiers are deployed there, we utilize the C-130 for sustainment to bring the supplies to the soldiers on the deployment.
In terms of the training that these Air Force pilots get, is it a daily training routine to stay combat ready, or how does it work in terms of training of the daily lives of military personnel?
The pilots, they need a lot of hours for them to remain current. So it needs a lot of aircrafts, a lot of training for them to remain current.
Yes. And in terms of the recruitment process, what's the military looking for? How do they recruit their pilots?
They must be medically fit. There are criteria for the pilot which is supposed to be followed. But however, what is important is the people must be willing citizens who are willing to defend the country, not coming for job seeking and enrichment. but there must be willing citizens
Yeah.
to defend the country.
You know, interesting you meant that. Last week I was speaking to the Chief of the Army, Lindile Yam, Lieutenant General, and he was saying that the Army, he wanted to be straight, basically. He said the Army or the military is not an employee of choice. You need to know what you're getting into here because it's a service of your country. And I quote, unquote, it's not a chicken jive business, he says. So he wants serious people who know what they're getting into. And I guess this kind of event, Armed Forces Day, offers our youth an opportunity to see if the military is a perfect fit.
Yes, this is actually we are trying to showcase our capabilities to South Africa so that they can know how safe they are.
Yeah.
The Defence Force is the last line of security within the country.
Yeah.
So we need people who are willing. We don't want people who will come and become people who are seeking employment,
Yeah.
and when they're qualified, they want to leave the Defence Force. This is the security of the country.
Yeah.
Yes.
Colonel, those planes that we're seeing on our screen, is those the C-130s, isn't
Correct.
it?
That
Those
is
are
the
the
C-130s,
Hercules.
yes. The
Yeah.
Hercules, yeah.
In terms of the interest shown by our youth in the build-up to Armed Forces Day, have you seen a keen interest from them?
Yes, a lot of keen interest. We saw yesterday also in the Fen Park, there was a lot of new applicants applying for the intake of next year, 2018.
Yeah.
Because the intake of 2017 was already recruited the previous year.
Yeah.
And now they already started training for the Army. They are in Ozoren, and
Yeah.
others they are in Kimberley. For the Air Force, they are in Hoedspruit. And for the SAMS, they
Yeah.
train in Lephalale. And for the Naval Force, they train in Saldanha, SAS Saldanha.
Colonel, stand by. You know, we'll also be having a medal parade when the Commander-in-Chief will bestow various military medals to deserving SANDF members, including the awarding of a 40-year service medal to the Chief of the SANDF, General Solly Shoke, after the parade. Now, there will be a capability demonstration at Blue Lagoon, a stone throw away from the Moses Mabhida Stadium. Will show off our military prowess of various assets of the military, will be flexing their muscles, so definitely one to watch. Happening right now here in Durban, we're positioned just outside the famed Moses Mabhida Stadium. Believe me, we have an army of camera operators, so to speak, present here today, so you can be rest assured that we have all the angles covered this time round. Now, let me bring in my colleague Simpewe Makanya. He's our man on the ground. He's along the route of the parade and has been covering the build-up to this special day. A very good morning to you, Simpewe. What do you have for us?
Good morning to you, Blaine. Well, indeed, it's a rainy day in Durban and a very historic day indeed, as the country remembers over 600 soldiers who lost their lives during the sinking of the ship SS Mendi. Well, around me you can see quite a number of members of the National Defence Force. As you are aware that the event has already started. But to assist us just to get a view of the people who are here, I'm just going to ask my cameraman to follow me around. We go and speak to some of the who have come to witness the event. Say, if I can just start with you, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Why are you here?
Well, it's great that Durban is celebrating Mendi Day on this scale, and it's remarkable that during the early 1900s, hundreds of black men gave their service to the South African Navy, and it's all right.
Okay, sorry to say I have to cut you there due to the shortage of time. But now let me hand over to Blaine Hammond.
Currently, we are seeing the medal presentation here. Let's take you live and listen into the sights and sounds of Armed Forces Day 2017.
Member of the South African National Defence Force who rendered distinguished service while personally providing medical care and attention to former President Mandela during his final illness, or when personally engaged in directing, controlling, planning, organizing, performing any duties and bringing to a successful conclusion the memorial service, lying in a state and state funeral of the former President Mandela. 92005958 MC Major Malema Jan Tlatla, Area Military Health Unit Limpopo, Major Tlatla. Collective citation. Bar to the Medaille vir Trouwediens, 40 years. The President has been pleased to award the bar to the Medaille vir Trouwediens, 40 years, instituted on 27 April 2003 by a warrant dated 27 April 2003 to the member who will now step forward, being members of the South African National Defence Force, who has distinguished themselves by long and efficient service of 40 years. 94654696 PR General Soli Zakaria Shoke, OMBG, SBS, MMS, OMS, Chief of the South African National Defence Force Command Division, General Shoke. Nine 94682614 PE Lieutenant General Vusmuzi Ramakala Masondo, MMM, Corporate Staff Division, Lieutenant General Masondo. Nine 94711025 PE Lieutenant General Bani Muntu Nomen Hlachwayo, GDM, Joint Operation Division, Lieutenant General Hlachwayo. Nine 94684115 PE Lieutenant General Aubrey Pechelelo Sidibe, DMG, MMS, MMB, CSTJ, South African Military Health Services Office, Lieutenant General Sidibe. Nine 94673035 PE Lieutenant General Norman Yengeni, Chief Human Resources Division, Lieutenant General Yengeni. Collective citation, Mandela Medallion Gold. The President has been pleased to award the Mandela Medallion Gold, instituted by a warrant dated 24 November 2014, to members who will now step forward, being civilian members, who rendered distinguished service while personally providing medical care and attention to former President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, during his final illness. Dr. Anneli Kopp. Dr. Jeremy Nell. Dr. Hussein Pahad. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the presentation of medals and medallions. You may now applaud the recipients. The President of the Republic of South Africa is requested to address the parade.
The Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Madam Mapisa Ngagula, Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. Willis Mkunu, Ministers, Deputy Ministers, MECs present, Municipality, Councillor Zandile, Kumede, and all mayors and councillors present. The Chief of the South African National Defence Force, generals, admirals, officers, warrant officers, non-commissioned officers, members on parade, military veterans of the World War II present here today, descendants of the patriots who died in the SS Mendi, fellow South Africans, I greet you all on this important occasion, our country's Armed Forces Day. Let me begin by extending our deepest condolences to the families of the 3 naval officers and 3 staff members of the Department of Public Works who lost their lives tragically late last week at the Durban Naval Base. We received the news with great shock and sadness, occurring just as preparations were at the advanced stage to celebrate Armed Forces Day. This Armed Forces Day has a special meaning in our country because we are marking the centenary of the sinking of the SS Mandy troop ship. On the 21st of February, 1917, the SS Mandy ship was chartered by the British government as a troop carrier to serve in World War I, carrying 823 members of the 5th Battalion. They had completed 34 days of the voyage from Cape Town to England and were now on their way to France to the war when the tragedy struck in the English Channel. The SS Mandy was struck and almost cut into half by a much bigger ship, the SS Territorial, which was bound for Argentina. 616 South Africans died in the disaster, mostly black South Africans. Black people had volunteered to join the First World War in order to fight against fascism. They were ahead of their time. They were internationalists who loved peace and justice. They also joined the war believing that their contribution would lead to better treatment back home after the war by the colonial masters. Unfortunately, their sacrifice did not earn them any respect from the rulers of the time. They were not allowed to carry weapons and were to be utilized as laborers rather than as fighting soldiers. They were also never decorated or awarded any medals at the end of the war. That is the painful history we come from, a history of brutal and blatant racism and colonialism. The sinking of the Mandy is the tragedy second only in scale to the tragedy at Devilwood in France the year before, in 1916, when 776 men of the South African battalion died holding the wood over 6 days. We traveled to France last year to pay tribute to those who fell in Devilwood and to ensure that black soldiers are honored and recognized in the South African monument to the war in that country on an equal footing with the white soldiers. The new monument in France honors all our soldiers, black and white. Together today, we restore the dignity and the humanity of the black soldiers who perished on that fateful day. We salute their courage, bravery, and commitment. We salute their quest for a more equal and just world. For the better world we are still working to achieve 100 years later. We also salute the men of the Mendi because they promoted unity of the South African people. We remember the timeless words of Reverend Isaac Woshope Gyoba, who said, and I quote, "Be quiet and calm, my countrymen. What is happening now is what you came to do. You are going to die, but that is what you came to do. Brothers, we are drilling the death drill. I, a Xhosa, say you are my brothers, Swazis, Pondos, Basutus. So let us die like brothers. We are the sons of Africa. Raise your war cries, brothers, for though they made us leave our spears in the crawl, our voices are left with our bodies." Unquote. In recognition of the tragedy amongst the national orders, the highest honors to be bestowed by South Africa is the Order of Mendi for bravery. Through his award, we will continue to honor these men and their sacrifices throughout our lives and from generation to generation. Compatriots and friends, in memory of the selfless and brave soldiers of the Mendi, today we salute the men and women of the South African National Defence Force. We take the Armed Forces Day parade and celebration to a different province each year. The ceremony was held in Atteridgeville, Tshwane in 2013, Bloemfontein in 2014, Potchefstroom in 2015, Port Elizabeth in 2016 and Durban in 2017. On this important day, as Commander-in-Chief, let me inform these thousands of our soldiers on behalf of the entire South African population that your work is highly appreciated. We thank you for answering the call to serve. We have full confidence in you. Armed Forces Day is an important feature of our national calendar. It provides an opportunity to promote better understanding of the South African National Defence Force and its role in the consolidation and defense of our democracy and our people. Our soldiers get out of the barracks and showcase to the people they are serving and protecting the capability of the Defence Force and its state-of-the-art equipment. We trust that all our people are now assured that the SANDF is combat ready. Many have enjoyed watching the various displays around eThekwini. The people have been able to see what the various components of the SANDF do, from the Navy to the Air Force, Army and military health services, and even our colorful ceremonial guard and our talented music and bands in the Defence Force. Armed Forces Day also provide an opportunity for our youth to learn about careers in the Defence Force. Through the military skills development system, the SANDF has continued to recruit healthy and fit young people to join the South African National Defence Force. They can be artisans, doctors, nurses, engineers, and whatever they want to be within the armed forces. Over the past 3 years, the SANDF has recruited over 11,000 young people into the ranks of the Defence Force. Importantly, the SANDF also supports other government departments in their community development work. The SANDF has trained 6,000 students who are part of the National Rural Development, the National Rural Youth Service Corps on behalf of the Rural Development and Land Reform. The Leadership Development Program is designed to expose youth in rural areas to discipline, community development, leadership, and critical life skills training. A similar program with the Department of Social Development has also been supported by the SANDF through training. The SANDF, in partnership with the province of the Northwest has launched a youth agriculture pilot project in the areas where the Defence Force has its footprint. This is but one example of community upliftment projects that our armed forces are involved in. On this important day, we also acknowledge the contribution of the SANDF when there are disasters, be it floods or fires, such as the fires that engulfed the Western Cape province over a long period. As we speak, the South African National Defence Force has been involved in disaster management in the wake of Cyclone Dineho. An ORAX helicopter is on standby at Air Force Base at Hoedspruit to cover both Mpumalanga and Limpopo provinces, with some operational members deployed at the Provincial Joint Center in Mpumalanga. The situation is being closely monitored, and immediate reaction is appreciated in the case of disaster management activities. When it comes to their core business, our soldiers continue to work tirelessly to defend the borders of the Republic. The South African National Defence Force continues to support and roll out the maritime security strategy along the eastern seaboard in the Mozambican Channel in order to counter piracy. The presence of our troops along the border also helps to curb crime. Members of the South African National Defence Force recover illegal weapons, stop illegal migrants crossings, and have recovered stolen vehicles, stock and contraband goods, and dagga, amongst others. The South African National Defence Force also plays a key role in our foreign policy, anchored on the promotion of peace and security in the continent in order to create conducive conditions for economic development. The African Union has taken a decision that we must silence the guns in Africa by the year 2020. South Africa plays its role in the fulfillment of this goal. We have deployed more than 3,000 members of the South African National Defence Force in the interest of contributing to peace and stability. We acknowledge the hard work of our troops in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Together with our friends and allies, they are standing under the United Nations Force intervention brigade against armed rebels in the eastern DRC. In other parts of the DRC, where tensions continue to simmer, they are responding to ensure that peace is maintained so that people and citizens of that country can live in a safe and secure environment. We will continue with our involvement in our mediation efforts, peacekeeping operations, and peacemaking initiatives in Lesotho, Democratic Republic of Congo, Burundi, Mozambique, South Sudan, Somalia, and Libya. We have lost soldiers in some of the peacekeeping missions in the DRC, Central African Republic, or the Sudan. We will always remember their selfless contribution to the quest for peace in our continent. Compatriots, every single member of the Defense Force is an integral part of our nation. As a nation, we salute you all. We also salute the men who lost their lives when the SS Mandy sank. May we continue drawing inspiration from their selfless commitment and sacrifice. Let me thank all who have contributed to the excellent arrangements of Armed Forces Day and SS Mandy commemoration. We thank the South African Army in particular, which is leading the celebrations this year. May we all continue to work hard and tirelessly to build a united, peaceful, secure, and prosperous South Africa. Happy Armed Forces Day to you all. I thank you.
The handing over of the South African National Defence Force flag will now commence. Please take note that
The
during the
President,
flag
just wrapping up his address to the parade, touched on some important issues. He offered his condolences to the 6 people that lost their lives on the Durban Navy base. I think it was Friday. It was 3 SANDF members as well as 3 civilians from Public Works. So tragic indeed, a bittersweet build-up to Armed Forces Day. The President also touched on those who lost their lives in the Battle of Delville Wood in France. He paid tribute to them. He saluted them for their courage and their bravery. Also, the President talking about the significance of Armed Forces Day, how important it is on our national calendar. Now we're having the handover flag. Currently, the Army is hosting this day, and it will be handed over to who, Colonel South African Air Force. So this happens every year. Each unit of service takes over and hosts.
Yes, each and every event is arranged by arm of service, and it rotates across the provinces. Yes.
In terms of the responsibility of the unit that is in charge, what do they have to do?
It's just a question of leading the organization of the whole arrangement, but the other services still support the effort.
Yeah.
Yes.
The President was also talking about the recruitment of around 11,000 young people that have been recruited in the SANDF in recent past, and you seeing this interest from the youth, it's encouraging.
Yes, of course it is. Remember, the old guard is aging, so we need fresh blood in the Defence Force. Yes.
How tough is it to be a part of this force, this Defence Force?
It is about determination, and if you set some goals that you are going to achieve, and tell yourself that you are not doing it for yourself, but you are doing it for the country, then you will not have any difficulties with regard to the toughness of the exercises, toughness of the training. So you always have to set up a goal and look at something, then you will see that everything will become smooth and simple. Yes.
Having a successful defense force, what does it mean for civilians like me as a citizen of this country? What does it mean?
A simple thing means assurance of the safety, that even when you are sleeping in your house, you know that there are men and women around, ensuring that you are safe and ensuring that the borders are closed and nobody will easily penetrate the borders of this country and come and disturb your peace.
The President is confident that our troops are combat ready. As a member of the South African National Army, if our territorial integrity is compromised in any way, are we ready?
We are always ready. Yes.
The daily routine of people in the Army, what is it? How do people, what is the schedule for a serviceman in the Army?
They say we train as we fight. So what we do, the training that we do, we prepare for our battle.
Let's just stand by now and I hear the anthem being played. Let's listen in. We heard the powerful sounds of the gun salute. Colonel, just tell us about the significance of the 21 gun salute as well as the 17 gun salute. What did we just hear now?
First and foremost, the 21 gun salute, we do it in honor of the Commander-in-Chief, who is our head of state, the President. Remember, he's the highest level of decision-making in the Defense Force. Then the last sounds that we just heard now, it is the 17 gun salute that we do it in honor of the highest uniform wearing member, who is the chief of the South African National Defence Force. Then we do it in honor of him every time.
He just received a medal for being in the military for 40 years of service. He's your boss. What's your impression? Tell us about him.
Yes, it is indeed a very good thing that you serve and set an example for a lot of generations. I think he would deserve the 40 years accolade.
The president also touched on the sinking of the SS Mendi. The tragic sinking of the SS Mendi in the English Channel was regarded as one of South Africa's worst tragedies of the First World War. Let me just give you a bit of history, just to recap. On the 16th of January 1917, the SS Mendi sailed from Cape Town, headed to Le Havre in France, and aboard her over 800 troops. Now, most of them were from the South African Native Labour Corps. Now, we understand that the SS Mendi stopped off at Plymouth before making her final destination to Le Havre. And on the morning of the 21st of February 1917, a very foggy morning, I might add, tragedy struck. Over 11,000-ton SS Darrow crashed into the SS Mendi's starboard side. That's the right-hand side. Just remember, the SS Mendi weighed just over 4,000 tons, so far lighter than the Darrow, and we're told it sank within 25 minutes, killing over 600 men. They died on impact, some of them, others in the icy waters of the English Channel. Now, that is a very poignant story, and we're going to touch more about that. Let's take in some of the sights and sounds now of the Armed Forces Day 2017. Colonel, we are now seeing men and women in uniform. We're seeing them using a red uniform. What are we looking at? Which unit is this?
The National Ceremonial Guard.
Okay.
That the ones on red, they are the band, and the in front is the unit itself.
We're officially in the part where we see the marching column going past. How many troops are we likely to see march past the president and give him the salute?
There will be 4 divisions. First in front, there will be the Army, followed by the Air Force, then the Navy, then lastly is going to be the military services. Then after that, there's going to be the column of mechanized vehicles.
Tell us about the preparation and build-up to get it precise. What sort of preparations were done this week?
It's a lot of meetings. It started since last year. Then you have to coordinate with the people in Pretoria. Then you must also be in Durban and coordinate. And the parade commander, General Hlongwa, who is in the small vehicle in front. Then he was the better part of his year in Durban, organizing.
Now we have a large contingent of troops, a large contingent of mechanized vehicles, the hard-skinned vehicles, marching past the famed Moses Mabhida stadium. Can the city's infrastructure handle these columns that are moving past?
Yes, I think when it's well coordinated, it's easy for the city to handle it. The only thing is when you don't have support from the local government and the city of Durban. But since Durban and its metropolis have been giving their part in terms of assistance, I think it's easier. And we didn't find any difficulties with regard to our preparations.
So communication is key, isn't it? You touched on the Metro Police. In terms of the relationship between, let's say, for instance, the army and the police services, generally, what sort of relationship do the various units have?
I remember the army and the police and other intelligence services, we form the security cluster of the country. So what is key is that we work together and we will win at the end of the day. Yes.
These troops, are they from the army now?
This is the army colors. There is unit colors as well as battle colors. Then behind them, you find the band, South African band, army band.
And those in the Land Rovers?
In the Land Rovers, in front is the parade commander himself, General Sandile Hlongwa. He is the first vehicle. Then behind him, you got different services, liaison officers. Then on the last vehicle, then you go to the SANDF Sergeant Major driving on that vehicle.
Ladies and gentlemen, the folks that you're seeing on your screen right now, the men and women in uniform, the servicemen of the SANDF are highly trained. Colonel, the President did mention that apart from combat, the military is very involved in non-military threats such as natural disasters, humanitarian relief. How much so does these efforts play in terms of your capabilities?
We always plan for that, because any disaster, we regard ourselves as the last resort to help. When every system fails, then the defense force must be there to assist. If you remember, even when there is public service strikes, when the hospitals, nurses and doctors strike, then the military steps in and the service continues.
Yeah, Armed Forces Day is about showcasing our equipment and resources and exhibiting our capability. In terms of our resources, is it up to date? In terms of our equipment, is it modern? Do we have the right stuff?
Yes, I think currently we're still in place. We are competing with the best in the world. And our equipment is delivering wonders for us. If you were there in the demonstration last night, I think you could have witnessed what I'm saying.
I did witness some of the demonstrations as well as the rehearsals, and I just picked up something. You know, South Africans are very affectionate people. We like to show our gratitude towards, say for instance, servicemen. Now, I noticed a lot of civilians saluting military personnel. Is that allowed? Or is that a no-no?
I cannot say it's a no-no, because saluting, we do it as a compliment, it's a greeting. We greet our seniors by saluting. So when the civilian is saluting, he's not trying to salute, but I take it as a greeting. Yes, I appreciate it.
Also something very interesting I picked up, the camouflage uniforms that the soldiers on our screens are currently using. A lot of civilians are using that. Some countries, it's illegal to use camouflage. What's the situation in South Africa?
Our camouflage is unique and it's a military uniform. So they are not allowed to wear the camouflage that way. I know that there are a lot of mechanized which are sold in a camo fashion, but they don't match the standard that we are wearing.
the existence of the South African National Defence Force. How has our military transformed over the years?
Transformation is an ongoing process. We cannot say we are now finished with the transformation, but we have done a lot. I think we are 80% plus. But we didn't stop. We're still carrying on doing transformation. That is why when we recruit, we also focus on the balances of the demographics of the country, that we don't go again to the past, whereby we have a certain line of population being represented more than the other.
Colonel Lufune Mafuna is on standby for now. He'll be joining us a little later on when the mechanized columns pass through. We're now joined by Commander Spiwe Ngidi from the SA Navy. So thank you very much indeed for your time. Your impressions of the day so far?
I'll say the day is going very well for us so far. Right now, because normally we'll say that there's no rain in the Navy, so the Navy is here. Even if it's raining or not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they say there's no rain in the Navy is in the rain.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, how does the weather play a part in missions, especially for the Navy?
It doesn't play I will say it doesn't play any part, because normally we deploy using ships. And on ships you are protected, and also we are at sea, so the rain doesn't play any part.
In terms of rough seas, our equipment, our vessels equipped to navigate through these rough seas?
Yes, especially the bigger vessels, for instance, the frigates, they are very much equipped, because they also have the fin stabilizers fitted so that you can still conduct our helicopter operations safely at sea. And also, if you are the sailor, you need to get your sea legs so that you can handle the seasickness, and then eventually it goes away.
Oh, that's a difficult part. Trust me, I've been on the opposite end of having sea legs. How's it in the Navy in terms of getting into it? We know about the recruitment process for the SANDF. The President touched on it with regards to about 11,000 newly recruited members of the SANDF in the recent past. In terms of the Navy, what's the process? If one wants to join the Navy, how do they do it?
Okay, just like any other arms of services, the posts, they get advertised via newspapers and also on TVs. And in the Navy, we've got different masterings, which we call the specializations. So those determine what type of person is going to be accepted in the Navy. But initially, you need to have your metric, and then it's going to depend which mastering you're going to follow. For instance, if you're going to become a combat officer, you're going to need to have maths and science, because for you to be able to navigate at sea, you need to have the understanding of the mathematics and science.
So math and science, very, very important.
It's very important.
In terms of our Navy, the core business is fighting at sea.
Yes.
What's our regional reach?
Regional reach, we mostly involved in the SADC region. And then, just like any other military as well, we've got 3 major roles. And those roles are diplomatic roles, policing role, and also military role. But the military tends to be the core focus or the primary function of the military. The one that we're busy with now, it's a policing role. We're currently involved in the Operation Copper in the Mozambican Channel. We're doing the anti-piracy patrols. The diplomatic, I would say, it's a flag showing, visiting other nations to promote the political and the military relations with other nations as well.
Piracy, a huge issue, isn't it? How are we coping with regards to the threat of piracy?
I would say we are I would say we are winning. Because even now there's a vessel that is stationed there in Durban. It just arrived now for this Armed Forces Day, and then immediately after this is going to deploy to Mozambique to continue with those anti-piracy patrols.
How sophisticated is the threat coming from pirates, so to speak? In terms of our fleets, are we dominant in that regard?
I will say we are, but the threat that is coming with the anti-piracy, we do not refer to it as a conventional threat, because they do not come with the weapons that we are that are recognized as conventional. Normally, those people they are armed. They'll be armed with RPGs and small arms. But with the type of weapons that we've got on board our ships, then they do not pose any threat. Especially if you're going to deploy them, then we stay alert. The only time they'll pose a threat to us is when we are not alert.
Yeah, the mechanized columns are starting to come through now past the Commander-in-Chief, President Jacob Zuma. A number of vehicles, we expect tanks, we expect G5s, G6s. I've been learning quite a bit in terms of the terminology in terms of our military hardware and military vehicles coming through this week. It's been a real entertaining and a real informative build-up to Armed Forces Days, and I guess that's part of the whole idea.
Yes, in the military, we firmly believe that you need to be prepared for whatever. So we planned and we prepare. Our preparations normally they'll take more time and more effort as compared to the execution part.
In terms of our frigates, what do we have currently here in Durban? What's based here?
We do not have any frigates based in Durban. We've got all the frigates, 4 frigates based in Cape Town. The only vessels that are based there are OPVs, the offshore patrol vessels, that were formerly referred to as strike-craft.
And in terms of the submarine, do we have a submarine here?
We've got a submarine here only for the Armed Forces, but all of the submarines are based in Cape Town as well.
Well, a very good morning to you. We are coming to you live from just across the stadium, the Mabhida Stadium. As you can see behind me, a beautiful setting of members of the Defence Force marching around. You can see the President as well is observing this march, and also different dignitaries. As you know, that today the country celebrates a very historic day where more than 600 soldiers lost their lives when the SS Mendi sank. Among some of the things that the President spoke about is the role of the South African National Defence Force, especially in peacekeeping missions across the country and also in the African continent and the world as a whole. What you are seeing now in your visuals are some of the beautiful equipment that we have as the South African National Defence Force. the equipment is on display. We understand that after this, then the crew will move to Blue Lagoon, just Durban North, where we will be seeing a demonstration of the capability demonstrations going ahead. But for now, let me hand over back to Blaine, my colleague.
So, Piva, thank you very much indeed. Great reporting. We'll be catching up with you in a little while, so stand by. We're still watching the mechanized columns moving through. Colonel Mafune from the SA Army is back with us. He's going to talk to us through the mechanized forces. These forces convey our troops. It's armed vehicles. And these are the hard-skinned vehicles, Colonel, that we're seeing normally used during wartime.
Yes, it is true. What we are seeing now is the ZT3 is the missile capability from the armor environment. It is covers to help from the direct fire support base to engage on tanks capability of the enemy. Coming through also, that is the Rattles 81 is mounted with the 81mm mortar. Is the indirect capabilities of the infantry. Behind the Rattle 81, you see coming through now, that is the Rattle 90. That is the infantry anti-tank capability. That is the heavy capability of the infantry environment. Following now behind, that is your armor vehicles. The Roycat is carrying the 76mm weapon. Is the direct fire support base and also the capability to soften the enemy targets before the assault from the infanteers. There you see your Rattles. This is a Rattle command.
The Roycat, how lethal is that?
No, it's just the name. The aggressiveness is that of the Roycat.
Yeah.
So it is a big vehicle.
Yeah.
Yes, it's armored car.
And what sort of armory does it have, and what sort of weapons does it have?
It's a 76mm gun armor, which is aimed at the army tanks capabilities.
Those that work on these vehicles, the mechanics, the engineers, are they part of the SANDF or are they outside of the SANDF?
We have got our own mechanic. You see at the back of the whole mechanized column, there is the technical services vehicles, which I'll take you through those. Yes. Now
so these are the tanks?
Carried there, those are the tanks. The one in front is the Mark 1, and the one at the back with the camo, that is the Mark 2. It carries the weapon of 105mm caliber. And we say in the military, the tanks fight tanks.
Yeah.
So that is the aggressiveness of the armor, whereby we need the capability of the tank to fight the enemy tanks, which is a serious threat to the ground forces.
If those tanks were on the road, would they cause considerable damage to the streets?
Yes, it damages. Because it doesn't have wheels, it will go. It works on the tracks. Yes. This is what I talked about earlier, the ZT3, the missile capability from the armor environment.
What sort of range do these missiles have?
It's up to 6 kilometers.
6 kilometers. You know, Colonel, there's a perception and a stereotype that soldiers are trained to be killers, but soldiers are actually trained to repel a threat, isn't it? Trained to deter threats that come against it. Is that? Do you find you coming up against these perceptions a lot?
No, not really. Each and every country have got a defense force. And I don't think there's any country in this world which can say they're safe, they're secure without a defense force. Yeah. So we are trained to protect the sovereignty of this state. Now, if you are there at the night, that is the 35mm Mark 5 Oerlikon anti-aircraft gun. The one which was stealing the show on the last minute.
The anti-aircraft gun, yes.
That one.
And what's the range? Because from witnessing last night and looking at the traces, it seems like quite a distance in terms of range.
Yes, the Oerlikon 35mm, it fires up to 4 kilometers.
Those soldiers that are in these tanks,
Yes.
they operated as, in terms of the training that they go through, what sort of training do they have to go through in terms of operating these tanks?
You got your formal training in the lecture room, for instance, whereby you learn about the capabilities of the weapon, you learn the utilization of the specific equipment. Then after that you go to the field and you do the practical exercise, whereby you tend to apply whatever you learn on the theory. So the guys, wherever we go, the guys we see protruding on the vehicle, they are our air sentries. They observe any threat from above. Then they will inform the appropriate stations so that we can do the necessary drills. Coming through there is your engineer capability. This is the Husky, the mine detection system. I think we are currently one of the leading nations with regard to the mine detection. We help a lot of countries in Africa with regard to detecting the minefields. Yes. So those are the engineering capabilities.
Is that still very much a big problem in Africa, undetonated mine?
Yes, there are those areas, but I think we manage with our African counterparts to detonate a lot of those mines, because the problem is they affect even innocent civilians. So if they were aimed only at soldiers, perhaps I was going to say the soldiers, they are right people to be affected by it, but to find the civilians now on the front line of the minefields, and it becomes a challenge. We need to deal with it.
The President did mention our peacekeeping efforts in Africa. In particular, he spoke about the DRC. We have a number of soldiers, a number of troops deployed. How widespread is the deployment in Africa?
Come again?
How widespread is our deployment in Africa?
We had troops in Burundi earlier, but we finished with the mission. Then it is stabilized. Then we had the troops also in Sudan. Then they're also done with their mission. But we're still carrying on with the DRC mission. And like you mentioned, there is also a diplomatic mission with regard to Lesotho. Yes. Those coming through are the floating boats from the engineering environment. Behind them you get your bridges. Also from the engineering environment, they assist us when we are in the battle situation where there's no proper access for our forces to cross. So they lay the bridges so that the rest of the vehicles from the ground forces, they can cross. Yes.
And that was demonstrated during the fan parks demonstrations. It was important, I guess, for the public to view those displays, to understand the capabilities and what military personnel go through.
Yes, it is a fan park is a good thing that you get the whole information about the system. But if you want to see the functioning of the system, like the one we see now passing through, the Batalier, the multiple rocket launcher, is the one which have got a lot of rockets. We fired a lot of rockets last night. And we also saw it works in coin hand with the G5. They are the artillery pieces. They are the ones which help us to soften the enemy before the rest of the forces can go.
Yes.
And they have got the furthest range. Like the G5 covers more than 40 kilometers. Yes.
So what's the difference between the G5 and the G6?
The G5 and the G6 they're carrying the similar weapons. It's the same 155 millimeters, but the G6 is the self-propelled, whilst the G5 is the towed equipment. But when it comes to the range and capability, it is the similar weapon. Those are the MRLs from the artillery environment. That is your indirect fire support capability. Yes.
fighting battles, fighting wars, being in the South African National Defence Force is not only a physically taxing, it's also psychologically taxing, isn't it? In terms of psychological training, psychological help for our soldiers, what's the options?
We have got services within the Defence Force, like the military health services. It helps us with the psychological part, whereby we do the training called the resilience training before you go to any operation. So those help us with regard to the psychological part. Coming through now with the tank transporters, but on top of it there you find the 150 millimeters G6 weapons from the artillery environment. Like I explained earlier, that the G5 and the G6, they've got the same capabilities. It's 155 millimeters. They can fire more than 40 kilometers, and they are the Army's indirect fire support capability.
Now there's something called the mechanized salute. Tell us a bit more about that. The barrel of the gun is low towards the president.
Yes, if you pick up when the marching columns they were passing, they were physically saluting with their hands to the president in the march pass. But when this vehicle comes, then they utilize their barrels, they tilt it down, they face it a bit to the president's side. Then it shows the vehicle salute, whilst the members on the turret, the ones protruding at the top, they physically salute and face to the right. Still with your G6 capabilities.
Our soldiers also continue to provide military training assistance, isn't it, to other armed forces on the continent?
Come again?
Our soldiers, our military, they also provide training for other armed forces on the continent, on the African continent.
Yes, it is true. But however, I remember as SADC, for instance, and the AU as a continental body, we have got the forces which they do training together for us to have a sort of a capacity within the continent to fight and to deal with different situations. So we go and do training with other countries, and we also train other people, and our people also go and do training from them. So it's a exchange programs. This is your G6. Yes.
In terms of borderline safeguarding, what sort of mechanized vehicles are alongside the border in terms of protecting it?
For borderline protection, we don't utilize mechanized capability for the protection of the borderline. We use our motorized capability as well as the specialized people, like the people riding on the motorbikes. We've got the people operating with the dogs, with people also operating with the horses. Those are the specialized capabilities that we utilize.
As you can see, the weather has not deterred the procession here. We're now seeing a number of Navy vessels. Commander Spiru Ngidi from SA Navy is still with us. Commander, what are we seeing now? This is the small craft of the Navy?
Yes, that's a rigid hull inflatable boat that you just saw now. It's just unfortunate that we cannot patrol our big ships on the streets. But those boats, they mostly belong to the MRS, which is the Maritime Reaction Squadron, which was formed and commissioned on the 8th of December 2008 by the Chief of the Navy. Its main, it's divided into four branches. You get the Reaction Force Division, you get the Operational Boats Division, Operational Maintenance Division, and then the Operational Diving Division. Those, they get mainly employed for amphibious warfare, if you need to deploy them to secure, let's say, the beach landing for the main forces to go through. And they also assist in protecting the naval vessel, be it in harbor or in close to land, because they get deployed with ships. Even when you're going to Mozambique for anti-piracy patrols, we get the team from the MRS to deploy with the ship.
You know, today we're celebrating, or commemorating rather, the centenary of the sinking of the SS Mendi. As a Navy man, when you hear about that story, how do you feel?
It's a very sad story, especially the fact that they were also not recognized as the people that sacrificed their lives, I would say, for their country. And for me, this day means a lot, because right now I've been appointed also as the officer commanding of SS Mendi, which is based in Simonstown. So it's a very big day, especially also you can even feel the vibe when you go. I've been deployed also with another ship through the English Channel. When you see that place, and then you get told that you can also see it on the chart that this is the place where SS Mendi sunk.
Yeah, you know, the English Channel is that body of water that separates southern England from northern France and joins the southern part of the North Sea to the rest of the Atlantic Ocean. And you can imagine the conditions these men face during this time of year. So, you know, it's one of South Africa's greatest tragedies of the First World War. And today, I guess, it gives us a chance to reflect and remember all those people who lost their lives. Their bodies were washed up ashore on both sides of the English Channel, and they were laid to rest by locals in various towns. Some bodies were never found, so the sea still remains their grave. A touching story indeed, and one of the most fascinating stories, I guess, ever related in South Africa's military history. And you know, there are many stories of bravery as the ship went down, and one of them was the Reverend Isaac Dioba, who cried words of encouragement to the dying men in this attempt to calm down the panicked men. He said, and I quote, "Be quiet and calm, my countrymen, for what is taking place now is what you came here to do, and we all are going to die, and this is what we came here to do. Brothers, we are drilling the death drill." When you hear words like that, Commander, what sort of emotions does it evoke in you?
Firstly, it just shows the commitment that they had, which is what the SANDF personnel or the soldiers, you need to have that commitment. It's not mainly about bravery, but it's commitment and understanding your call of duty, that the call of duty overrides everything. And whenever you sign for the SANDF or for the Navy, Army, Air Force, you are signing that you are willing to lay down your life for the safety of your countrymen. So at least they fulfill that promise to themselves and also to their country.
In terms of current weather conditions, we know we experienced the effects of Dineo. In terms of the Navy's role in assisting coastal towns, what is it?
We cannot do much. That's why we've got the disaster relief operations. But should we be needed to evacuate people that will be in danger, we've got the small boats that can be deployed very close to shore that can assist. But our main assets, they cannot maintain that, except for the SS Drakensberg, which is the support vessel. It can deliver the disaster relief equipment, be it blankets, be it food, whatever that needs to be deployed to a certain area. Then that's when we come in.
We see troops marching now down past Mabhida Stadium, saluting the President, the Commander-in-Chief, President Jacob Zuma. Where are we at the stage in terms of the program, Commander?
I think now the mechanized march past is through. I think we're almost wrapping it up now. We're reaching the end of the program for the day.
Now, following this parade, we are going to go to the capability demonstrations. That's at the Blue Lagoon, just a stone throw away from the Mabhida Stadium. What can we expect in terms of the Navy's part in that?
I think we're only going to be mainly just to show them that, because we cannot practically show it. So it's just going to be people explaining exactly what the Navy is all about, how to get into the Navy, how do you conduct our business, the qualifications that you need to have to be in the Navy.
In terms of the capability demonstrations in the Blue Lagoon,
yes.
Is the Navy a part of that?
Not a very main part of it.
Okay.
Yes.
Are we going to prepare for the anthem now? Is that how it works in terms of wrapping things up?
Yes, I'm not sure if it's going to be done, but he's supposed to receive the last salute to the president.
Okay.
Because you salute him when he first gets here, and then also when he's about to leave, he needs to get the salute.
All in all, a special day for you as a person of the Navy and your Armed Forces Day. What does it mean personally for you?
It's mainly the drive is to make the general public of South Africa understand what we are here. Okay, our duty. Where do they link in with the SNDF? What can they expect from their SNDF? Also to assure them that the SNDF is here for them. We're not here against the general public. We're here to serve them, and so they need to see what our equipment is and the type of people that we are. That's why I need to public like gentlemen. And I was going to receive the last.
It is a day on which the South African population honors men and women of the South African National Defence Force by affirming its support and gratitude to them for upholding the Constitution of the Republic and defending the territorial integrity of the Republic, as well as protecting its people. Now, they do an important job, which I guess allows us as citizens to get on with our daily lives, knowing that somebody has our back. So a significant job indeed. Durban has been a hive of activity over the past couple of days. The fan park was open to the public. The SNDF had their military equipment there, showcasing it. A spectacle of music, military musical performances by various bands. There was drill sessions, as we were talking about earlier on, the engineering bridge laying demonstrations, and also there was also this recruitment team there, an opportunity for youth to find out more about the Defence Force and I guess decide if they're interested in joining it. So just an interesting footnote that as I was speaking to the Chief of the Army last week, Lieutenant General Lindile Yam, and he was saying that although they welcome people to join the army, they must know what they're getting into. And he said, he wants to be straight. It's a military force. Wars are fought. So, and get this is what he actually said. It's not a funky chicken jive business. So know what you're getting into. I guess this is a perfect platform and a perfect opportunity to learn more about our country's defense force, what makes them tick, and find out, will this be a perfect fit for you? Now, after the parade, there will be a demonstration at Blue Lagoon, a stone throw away from the Mabhida Stadium. It will show off our military's prowess of the various assets of the military. Will be actually flexing their muscles, so to speak. So one definitely to watch. So the public are allowed to come along and view the demonstration. However, those who can't make it to the parade, the capability demonstrations will be at the fan park in terms of a big screen projection. So that will be live. So if you can't make it down to the Blue Lagoon, you can go to the fan park and watch that. Now, we're talking about the SS Mendi and how important it is. Currently, we have an SABC team in the UK. They are on board the Amatola on the English channel. We have my colleague Ayanda Mhlongo, as well as camera operator Bushle Kumalo and Minoshni Pillay from radio. Stand by. They will be bringing us all the reports and all sorts of activities from the English channel. There was a wreath that was taken down to the wreck of the SS Mendi, and that was, I guess, a poignant moment. So keep locked onto SABC News for more in terms of the stories that will be coming from the English channel from our team. Now, the might and skills of our military on fine display. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I hope that you, like myself, have learned a little more about the people that protect us. It is indeed a day in which South Africa's population honors the men and women of the South African National Defence Force by affirming its support and gratitude to them for upholding the Constitution of the Republic. So that's how we wrap things up. I think we are going to go to the Blue Lagoon. Director, are we going to Blue Lagoon? Okay, let's take you live now to Blue Lagoon. Okay, let's go. I don't think we've set up just yet. So the parade will be completed. The capability demonstrations at Blue Lagoon. As soon as that's done, we'll come back to you. For now, let me toss it back to the studio.